Okay. Hi everyone, it's Celeste and welcome to my channel. My channel is all about cosplay. I teach you tutorials on how to make the outfit, how to do the makeup so you can become the character of your dreams. I have such a weird look going on today, but that's okay because today is all about a brand new cosplay. Today's cosplay is Elektra from Daredevil. It's also from like the Defenders and all. Okay, I'm here to tell you how to make this cosplay from scratch and maybe a little bit here and there. But I'm really shocked about this tutorial because I used up all the scraps of my cosplay. Maybe this will give you guys an idea of how to incorporate scraps into your cosplays. Now, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. I did, so this is just like one of those like look what I did kind of things, but showing you how to make this cosplay too. So this tutorial took a long time for me to make because I was trying to 3D print a really special pair of sais. That didn't come out, so instead I went to the costume shop and bought these bad boys. Now these are able to go to a convention because they're plastic. They can't hurt someone unless you really try to hurt someone, versus the plastic that I was going to make has points and that's not safe. So without further ado, make sure to subscribe if you're new to my channel so you never miss out on any new cosplay content. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, baby. And you know what? Let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. Phew! Today we are going to be using this nice red stretch spandex, and when I mean stretch, I mean stretch. So this, I don't have that much material left. You can see it's kind of like 1.5 yards. It's pretty nice, so this is like 1.5 meters, but still. This is enough for one cosplay in my opinion. I don't think I could get more out of it than that. Maybe some accessories for another cosplay, but this I've had for a long time and I finally know what I want to make with it. Obviously you could tell what that is from the title. So this is like a really nice blood red. So I don't know if you can tell, but this fabric has been in my stash for a long time. Either I'm going to throw it into the dryer to quickly iron out all of it, or just use the iron as usual. Wow, look how nice and smooth it is now that it is out of the dryer. I did not use the iron. So to make this cosplay, I'm going to be using this material now that it's nice and smooth, and I can't stop rubbing my hand on it. And then now I'm going to be using Quick Sew 2310, aka just the leotard part. Obviously I'm going to cut off one of the leotard shoulder pieces and create a very symmetrical leotard. And of course I'm not going to make any of these skirts. I don't need to do that. So let's go ahead and fold this bad boy and cut it out. I only folded over my fabric slightly so it fit the pattern, and then I cut my pattern out. My pattern was actually not sized appropriately, and so I cut it the right length that it needed to be. I repeated the same process for the back side, but this time I did not cut it on fold. That's not what the instructions told me to do, so I didn't worry too much about it. Here I inverted the pieces for the back. I'm going to go ahead and sew this back seam together first, making sure that it is lined up, and then I'm going to pin it to the front bodice. This is the butt part. So now we switch our stitch to a zigzag specialty stretch stitch and go ahead and start sewing. Now that the back is sewn together, I'm going to pin it to the front. Now sew the shoulder seams. Now it's time to sew down the sides. And make sure you use a nice stretchy stitch. Now it's time to pin together the crotch seam. It looks a little funny and I'm not sure why, but we're gonna pin it together first and then sew it. So let me go ahead and get that down. That was not placed properly. I went ahead and tried it on and had to take in all of the seams because it was too large, so I should have cut out a small instead. Also, I went ahead and sewed them down and took in the seams where it was necessary. This is after I tried it on and then retried it and it fit really nice. So now I'm just going to cut off these extra pieces. Oh, I really hate the leg holes. They're too low. They sit right at the bottom of my hips next to my butt, and we want to make this a little bit sexier. So what we're going to do is open up the leg hole. I created a nice pin line version of what I want first, then I'm going to cut it out. Then I'm going to take whatever I cut off on this side and mimic it on this side. Let's hope I do this correctly. Now lay your swimsuit kind of looking thing your leotard flat on a surface. Make sure that it's nice and smooth and ease out any of the seams so it lays that way. Now go ahead and pin along the neckline and altering it. We want the right shoulder seam to come off because that's part of the cosplay. So I actually drew a little line kind of showing where I wanted it to go. I pinned it all down both front and back. This way I can cut completely even the way I want to. We're going to completely remove all of this and create a seamless neckline. Now let's go ahead and just cut it all off. Moment of truth, so it's like kind of nerve-wracking. I'm just gonna cut right along the line that I made. Go this way and just taper off the end. And now all we have to do is add a elastic here and add elastic around the leg holes. This is going to keep it nice and secure and not shift. Luckily this fabric is not fraying, like it does not fray. It's a type of woven, and even if I like stretch it tons, it doesn't really buckle or curl like t-shirt fabric. So if I want, I can just leave it as is and leave it very raw. But I think it will be better if I did add elastic. So now I cut a piece of elastic that's definitely not slightly, but a lot smaller than my leg hole. And now I'm going to sew this together to make a nice loopy. Then I'm going to sew it to this. You can see here that the elastic ring is a lot smaller than our leg hole. This is going to help keep it nice and formed and not turn wavy when it gets on our body, especially since we want to face it. So what we're going to do is pin one of the pieces to here, and then the middle point is going to be pinned at the other side of the middle of the leg hole. What we're going to do first is actually sew it on the outside. So what you want to do is have your elastic down first from that first starting point, and then you want your fabric to slightly cover it, not entirely. We're going to be sewing it together, and this way it'll become attached. We're going to zigzag stitch this together. Now that I got a few stitches in, I'm going to pull it tightly. You can see that now the elastic becomes stretched, and now I'm going to hold it at a certain point, making sure that I don't mess it up. Making sure that it stays nice and taut and stretches the way it needs to. So now I'm going to hold here, pull it lightly, and then go here. You want to do this in small sections. Then readjust if necessary. There you go. So now you can actually see how it looks when it's attached. So it just looks like this nice, really poorly sewn on elastic band on this leg hole. So what we want to do is fold it over and then sew down this white part, kind of like a bias tape. For this one, I actually increased my width just so that it can reach both sides onto the elastic. Now I'm going to fold it over nicely into the bias. And now I'm going to nice and press it down with the presser foot. Make sure that I'm not going to sew on top of it by wrapping it around the foot of my sewing machine. And now I just slowly begin. So the armhole also has to have the elastic. So in order to do the armhole, I'm going to show you how I measure out my elastic for this. I am going to put my elastic here at the edge seam, measure my way all the way down and stretch it slightly. Now I'm going to take off 3 centimeters or ½ inch off, and then I'm going to fold it in half. And this is my size that I'm going to be using for my armhole. Make sure this fits you first comfortably, because once you start adding the elastic, it just makes it hug so much nicer and smoother. Now that I have finished the armhole facing, I just need to repeat the same step again for the neck hole. Now using one of these long scrappy bits, I'm going to cut this to my waist measurement and sew it together to create a band for my waist. So what I did was make sure that this scrap piece of material could go around my waist, and then took off like 2 inches from that measurement because this is stretchy. Now I'm just going to cut out that nice long rectangle. Now I'm going to cut out this weird shape here on the left side. I don't know what it really is going to be, but I think I'm going to use it for the headpiece. The headpiece is essentially a do-rag, so I'm going to cut off all these extra little pieces and kind of make it into a trapezoid. In order for my do-rag to stay in place, I'm going to sew strips onto the side. That way it will be able to wrap around my head and pull very tightly. So this is what I have for the remaining of my fabric, and I'm going to try to use the big square part and turn it into my very nice skirt pieces or flap pieces. You know, the butt flap and the vagina crotch flap. That's what I'm going to try to create. So now I'm going to cut off all the extra sides so it's nice and even and straight. Now that the square is totally clean, I'm going to cut it in half. I already have it folded, and this is how I usually do my perfect center cuts. I fold it in half and then cut it all the way down. So I found this. This is actually supposed to be for the head tie, the hair tie here, the thingy that goes, the do-rag. I messed up completely, and so now I need to make a new waistband. So to create my new waistband, I'm going to take this nice solid chunk, because the rest of it is pretty much scraps. I'm going to cut it in half and then sew it together. So try to get it as even as possible. Okay, so there's my new waistband, sort of, not really. So I want this to be a little bit thicker. I want it to be two-sided, so what I'm going to do is cut up tons of these scraps and kind of add it to this to make it the same length, and then it'll be really nice. So once I have another waistband, I'm going to sew it together first and then attach the skirt. Alright, so I have assembled my waistband inside out, so when I'm done it's going to be flipped this way. It'll look a lot nicer than this Frankenstein mesh, which is okay. My waistband is going to be sewn together at the sides. Find the center front and the center back of the band. Pin the skirt flaps in the middle, one for the front and one for the back. Make sure your skirt pieces are pinned to the right side and do a basting stitch to hold them in place. Slowly roll up your skirt like an inverted fruit roll-up or a nice and tight sushi roll so it can fit inside the waistband casing. When doing this, the wrong side should be facing out. Once your skirt is fully inside the waistband, pin the waistband closed. Leave an opening available to invert the waistband. I'm using a stretch stitch because this is a stretchy material. Make sure not to sew the entire thing closed. You want to invert this to get the skirts out. Since this material doesn't like being tooped up and is poking out like a bad turtle, go ahead and pull your skirt flap out now. This is going to actually help it invert, and that way you don't have a hard time. Hopefully you don't have a hard time. I didn't have a hard time. So go ahead and pull both skirt flaps out. Make sure to fully invert your waistband. This way you get the other side open so you can join the waistband together. So now that we have the skirt completely made and I sealed off this little part here, you can't really see it, but I just stretched it out and sewed a nice line. So it kind of just is there, but you won't really see it. So now what I'm going to do is join these two pieces together by slip stitching in between. And you guys have seen that in a previous video, so we're gonna forgo that, and once we do that, slip stitching this, we will be done. Woohoo! So this is as much of the material that I have left. You can see it's basically in shambles. So what I really want to do is take advantage of these bigger pieces. So what I'm thinking about doing is trying the technique that I have. Where is it? I want to take this little like X leg hole and open it and then start sewing bunches of the material on it, making a brand new material so I can make the bracers and stuff and not waste any of the material. Like, this is completely unnecessary. You could just go out and buy fabric or something else not like this. But with this cosplay, I decided that I wanted to use all of the material and not buy anything. That's because I'm strange like that and I don't really want to waste any of my material. So what I'm going to do is actually take all the pieces, scraps, and whichever I have little scrappy bits left, I'm going to sew them into big long strips. I'm going to sew them into small strips and then sew them to the bigger strips. This way it creates a layered effect on my bands, and then I can wrap it all around my body. So I'm going to have 2 bands for my upper arm, I'm going to have 2 bands for my wrist area, and then 2 bands for my thighs. This does not have to be perfect, and it does look like in a different amount of artworks that they are just bunches of ribbons wrapped around her arms and her legs. So this you can really have fun and play with and change it up however you like. And this is all of the costume. I've used up every single last bit. Smallest remnants are here. I can't wait to show you, and yes, I sewed even the smallest parts into this costume because I wanted to add texture. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little tutorial, and if you are interested in more superhero, villain kind of comic book characters, make sure to leave that in a comment down below. If you guys like this tutorial, make sure to check out some of my other tutorials floating around my head and subscribe down below. Remember to stay inspired, be creative, and I will see you in a future video. Bye!